It's the kind of story you hear about on a late-night talk show, a dramatic narrative that seems too wild to be true. But this wasn't a script. It was my life. A perfect American dream life, with my wife Sarah and our 5-year-old son Leo in a cozy little home in suburban Denver. Leo had my dark curly hair and my sense of humor. He was the center of our universe. My days revolved around him. From our morning rituals to our evenings playing catch in the backyard. I had everything I had ever wanted. It was a perfect lie. The truth revealed itself not through a dramatic confrontation, but in the quiet stillness of an ordinary Tuesday afternoon. I was on the couch watching a show on Netflix, a dull sitcom playing on the screen. The scent of garlic and simmering tomato sauce from Sarah's cooking filled the air, a comforting aroma that normally signaled the end of a long, good day. Her phone was face up on the coffee table, a small black rectangle of polished glass and metal. The screen lit up with a WhatsApp notification. My eyes almost subconsciously drifted to it. The message preview was from a contact named Marcus, and the words that appeared on the screen froze me solid. Don't let him get a look at the papers. Paternity is a non-negotiable part of our plan. My heart stopped. The world around me seemed to fade into a silent blur. My wife was just a few feet away, humming along to a song on the radio. But in that one moment in our beautiful, expensive home, everything I thought I knew about her and about us turned out to be a lie. The scent of garlic turned sour, the sitcom's laughter felt hollow, and I felt the cold, hard floor of my reality crash down around me. Before we go any further, make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on more cases like this. Our relationship was a fairy tale that started on a blind date at a bustling Starbucks in downtown Denver. I was a senior financial analyst and Sarah was a talented artist and graphic designer. Her creativity a vibrant contrast to my world of spreadsheets and numbers. We were a modern power couple, a perfect team. We balanced professional ambitions with a shared desire for a quiet family life. We had a joint bank account at Bank of America, a shared Amazon Prime membership, and our lives were a synchronized dance of work and family. We had a little running joke about who would have to get up to get the mail, a simple tradition that always ended with me winning by a hair. The topic of our son Leo was always a source of immense joy. He was the very reason our life felt so complete, a small, bright spark in our universe. The conversations about his future, his first day of kindergarten, his love for science, his desire to be a space explorer, they were the foundations of our perfect world. I remember talking to my mother about how much he looked like me, and she would always agree, "He's got your dark eyes and your quiet wisdom, honey." It was a simple, innocent observation. I never once questioned his parentage. I had no reason to. I was blinded by love, and I was convinced that our love was built on a foundation of truth. Update 1. The picture-perfect lie. The first crack in my reality appeared unexpectedly, not with a fight but with a simple, seemingly innocent request. My sister, a meticulous and pragmatic attorney practicing in Boulder, had recently updated her own will and, over a quiet Sunday brunch at our home, strongly advised us to do the same. "It's just good sense and it's for Leo's future," she had said, her tone professional yet caring. "Just make sure all the paperwork is in order. For the legal documents to be completely solid, we'll need a copy of his official birth certificate too to confirm parentage and avoid any future complications." The request was simple, logical, and entirely reasonable. That evening, as Sarah was getting ready for bed, I brought it up. "My sister mentioned we should update our wills. She'll need a copy of Leo's birth certificate." Sarah paused, her hand hovering over her nightstand. "Of course," she'd said with a perfect, practiced smile. "I'll dig it out of the safe tomorrow morning." But the next day, her response was different. When I reminded her, her tone shifted. "I can't find it," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. A small alarm bell went off in my mind. The safe was a fireproof box in our closet, meticulously organized with all our important documents. It wasn't a place where things just went missing. I offered to take care of it. "It's no problem at all," I said, pulling out my phone. "I can just order a new copy from the county records office online." Her reaction was immediate and strangely panicked. "No, don't worry about it," she insisted, her voice a little too loud, her eyes a little too wide. "I'm sure it'll turn up, it's just a piece of paper anyway." Her insistence, her sudden shift in demeanor, was what solidified the suspicion I had felt since seeing that cryptic WhatsApp message. Paternity is a non-negotiable part of our plan. The two pieces of information, the missing document and the ominous message, fit together with a sickening click. In that moment, our perfect lie began to crumble, and I knew I was standing on the precipice of a devastating truth. Update 2. The digital breadcrumbs. That single message and her odd, frantic behavior were all the fuel my suspicion needed. Every time I looked at Leo, a knot formed in my stomach. The boy I had loved and raised for 5 years. Was he truly my son? The possibility, a cold and suffocating one, haunted my every waking moment. I knew I couldn't confront Sarah directly. Her mastery of deflection and emotional manipulation was something I had witnessed many times before. She would use her considerable charm and a well-practiced look of hurt to make me feel like a paranoid villain for even asking. No, my only way to the truth was to become a detective, to find undeniable proof. One evening, after she had fallen into a deep, exhausted sleep, I carefully and quietly slipped out of bed. The floorboards creaked under my bare feet as I made my way to the living room. Her phone was face up on the coffee table, a small black rectangle of polished glass and metal. My hands trembled as I carefully picked it up. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs as I entered her password, the day of my birthday. The irony was a gut punch. I navigated to her WhatsApp and scrolled to the chat with the contact named Marcus. My blood ran cold as I scrolled through their conversations. The messages were a meticulous, step-by-step account of a deep-seated conspiracy. They discussed my work schedule, my family's whereabouts, and a series of large, unexplained financial transactions that had been disappearing from our joint Bank of America account. I saw a message from Marcus that sent a shockwave of ice through my veins. He just deposited his bonus check. Perfect, I'll send you the rest. My heart froze. My paycheck? I logged into our joint Bank of America account on my laptop and cross-referenced the dates. My stomach turned as I saw a series of large cash withdrawals and wire transfers. The memo line was always the same: art supplies expenses. But the amounts were far too large for her small business. She wasn't just lying about Leo. She was systematically siphoning my money to fund her and Marcus's secret life. The sheer scale of the financial fraud was sickening. My life, my money, my family, all of it was being used as a source of income for her and her accomplice. The digital breadcrumbs confirmed my worst fears, and I knew I was in for the fight of my life. Update 3. The masterclass in gaslighting. I knew I had to remain calm, to not let her see that I knew. I had the damning evidence, and I had to use it to my advantage. The next morning, I decided to test her. I approached her in the kitchen as she was making coffee, feigning a casual tone as I leaned against the counter. "Hey, I was just looking at our bank statement, and some of the expenses seem a little high lately. Did you get a new gallery space or something?" Her reaction was immediate and theatrical. Her eyes went wide, and her face hardened into a mask of righteous indignation. She slammed the coffee mug down on the counter, the clatter echoing in the quiet kitchen. "Are you going through my things again? Don't you trust me?" she snapped, her voice a low growl. "This is what I was talking about with my friends. You're so paranoid lately, it's suffocating. I'm working hard to build my business, and this is the appreciation I get? You accusing me of something?" Her words were a weapon. She twisted the truth, making me feel like a villain for even asking a simple, logical question. She made me question my own sanity, my own perceptions. I was the one with a right to know, and yet she had me feeling guilty for it. This was a classic gaslighting technique designed to confuse and control me. But I wasn't falling for it. I had the WhatsApp messages and the bank statements. I knew the truth, and she was just giving me more reason to expose her. The investigation was just beginning. I decided to stop asking questions and start gathering more concrete evidence. My next move had to be more calculated. I had to find a way to get undeniable proof of Leo's paternity without raising any suspicion. It was a race against time, and I had to win. Update 4. The DNA of deceit. My mind raced, the cold, hard reality of my situation settling in. I had to get definitive proof, something that couldn't be argued away or gaslit into oblivion. I couldn't just take Leo to a clinic for a DNA test. Sarah would immediately suspect my motives and put her plans into motion to hide the truth. I needed to get his DNA discreetly, without her knowledge. I remembered a conversation with my sister, the attorney from Boulder, who had once told me about an online service called 23andMe that provided at-home DNA tests. All you needed was a simple cheek swab. It was a perfect, untraceable way to get the answers I so desperately needed. I ordered a kit on Amazon Prime and had it delivered to my office so Sarah wouldn't find out. The day it arrived, a small brown box with a simple logo. My heart was a tangled knot of hope and dread. I hid it in my desk drawer until the perfect moment presented itself. My opportunity came a few days later when Sarah had a dentist appointment and I was home alone with Leo, ostensibly to build a Lego castle with him. We were in the living room, surrounded by a colorful explosion of plastic bricks. As he was focused on putting a tiny flag on a turret, I used a new technique I'd learned online. I casually wiped his mouth with a Q-tip, pretending to clean up a smudge of chocolate. "Got a little something on your face, buddy," I said with a smile that felt foreign on my lips. He didn't even notice. He just giggled and asked for more chocolate. I carefully sealed the swab and sent the package to the lab, filled with a sickening mix of hope and dread. The hope was that the test would prove her wrong. The dread was that it would prove her right. The next 2 weeks were a special kind of torture. Every time I looked at Leo, a knot formed in my stomach. Was he my son? Was our entire life together a lie? The psychological abuse was taking its toll. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, and all I could think about was the truth. The man who had once been so sure of his life, so content in his perfect little world, was now a hollow shell, waiting for a simple email to confirm his worst fears. Update 5. The Paternity Fraud. The email from 23andMe arrived on a Monday morning. The notification popped up on my phone as I was sitting at my desk, the world outside humming along as if nothing was wrong. My hands trembled as I clicked on the link. The results were there, staring back at me in a cold, clinical font. The words were a knife to the heart. Paternity excluded. My world came to a screeching halt. The room started to spin, the walls seemed to close in on me, and I felt a wave of nausea. He wasn't my son. The boy I had loved, raised, and poured my soul into for 5 years was not biologically mine. The betrayal was a physical weight, crushing me under its immense reality. I didn't just feel heartbroken. I felt like a fool. A pawn in a game I didn't even know I was playing. My mind raced back to the WhatsApp messages, the financial fraud, and the doctor's visit. It all made sense now. The missing birth certificate, the secret conversations, the money disappearing from our account. It was all part of an intricate lie designed to deceive me. I wasn't just a victim of infidelity. I was a victim of paternity fraud. The rage I felt was so immense it was terrifying. I was no longer an unsuspecting victim. I was a man with nothing left to lose. I looked at the DNA results on my screen, and I knew what I had to do. The revenge plot had to be calculated, methodical, and devastating. She had ruined my life, and now I was going to expose the entire conspiracy to the world, and her. The investigation was just getting started. Update 6, the calm before the storm. I sat in the darkness of my home office, the cold glow of the computer monitor illuminating the horrifying words on the screen. The rage had subsided, replaced by a cold, calculating resolve. My first step was self-preservation. As a financial analyst, I knew what I had to do, and I knew how to do it with surgical precision. I pulled up my laptop and went to work, my fingers flying across the keyboard with a purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. I changed the passwords for every single joint account we had, my Apple ID, our Bank of America accounts, my personal investment accounts at Fidelity, even our Netflix and Amazon Prime. I wanted to make sure she couldn't get her hands on another dime. The thought of her still having access to my hard-earned money was sickening, a constant reminder of her betrayal. I felt a grim sense of satisfaction as each digital door slammed shut behind her, but it was quickly replaced by a profound feeling of emptiness. Next, I logged into our joint Bank of America account and systematically moved every penny into a new, private account I had secretly opened weeks earlier, an account she knew nothing about. I left only a small amount for bills, a little breadcrumb trail to make her think everything was normal. I wanted her to feel a false sense of security, to believe her secret life was still a secret. The plan was in motion and I had to be patient. I had to act like a loving husband just for a little while longer. The thought was repulsive, but it was necessary. I was no longer a husband. I was a man on a mission, and that mission was to expose her and her entire conspiracy. My mind, once consumed by love and family, was now a database of information, a meticulous ledger of her deceit. I was a ghost in my own home, a man with a secret that was slowly eating me alive. The silence in the house, a silence that once comforted me, was now a constant, deafening hum of my own thoughts, a quiet storm brewing before the devastation to come. Update 7. The Master of the House. My methodical plan to collect more evidence began in earnest. I used my skills as a financial analyst to access a deeper level of our joint bank account history. The fraudulent transactions she disguised as art supplies were even more extensive than I first thought. I saw a series of large wire transfers to a private bank account. A quick search of the account number led me to a name, Marcus Thorne. I cross-referenced the name and found an address in San Francisco. The address was a post office box, a perfect front for a criminal enterprise. I felt a surge of adrenaline, the thrill of the hunt replacing the dull ache of betrayal. Then, a chilling detail emerged. I found a few old photos from a trip to California in her Google Drive archives. In one of the photos, taken on a beach in Santa Monica, was a man I had never seen before. He had a strong jaw, dark eyes, and a confident smile. My blood ran cold when I saw the timestamp. It was from a month before our wedding. I did a reverse image search and found his social media profile. It was Marcus. This wasn't a recent affair. This was a long-standing conspiracy, and I was just the patsy. I clicked on his profile and scrolled through his photos. I saw pictures of him with Sarah's family, at her graduation, and even at her father's birthday party. They had known each other for years, and they had been a part of my life, my family, my memories. The betrayal was not just a one-time event. It was a deep-seated conspiracy that had been going on for years. The man who had once been so sure of his life, so content in his perfect little world, was now a hollow shell, waiting for a simple email to confirm his worst fears. My mind was a storm of questions, a maelstrom of anger and disbelief. How could she have done this to me? How could she have been so cruel? The answers were right there, staring back at me from the screen, and I knew I was in for the fight of my life. Update 8. The confrontation. I knew I had all the evidence I needed, the paternity test results, the bank statements, the WhatsApp messages, the photos, and the name of her accomplice. The final act of this tragedy was about to begin. I waited until Leo was asleep, his small chest rising and falling in the quiet darkness of his room. Sarah was in the living room, scrolling through her phone, the soft light of the screen illuminating her face. I walked in, my heart pounding in my chest, a frantic drum against my ribs. "Sarah," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "We need to talk, right now." She looked up, annoyed. "What is it, honey? I'm tired." I sat across from her and placed my laptop on the coffee table between us. I had the screen open to the 23andMe results. My hands were shaking, but this time it was from fury, not fear. "Don't bother to lie," I said, pushing the laptop closer to her. "I know everything." Her eyes went wide, but she didn't flinch. She just stared at the screen, a look of pure, cold hatred on her face. "You shouldn't have done that," she hissed. "You have no idea what you've just done." But she didn't realize that my phone, the one I had just placed on the table, was a live recorder, and I was about to expose her entire conspiracy. Update 9. The shocking confession. Sarah's cold facade broke. She saw the recording light on my phone, and the full weight of her deceit finally crashed down on her. Her posture collapsed and she looked defeated. The air went out of her like a deflating balloon, and the defiant look in her eyes was replaced with a deep, suffocating fear. "He said you were too smart to fall for it," she whispered, her voice a hollow shell. "He said you'd find out eventually, but he didn't think it would be so soon. He thought we had more time." She took a shaky breath, her gaze darting from my face to the recording light on the phone. The desperation was palpable. "Who is Marcus?" I demanded again, the words laced with cold fury. "And why is my family involved?" She began to speak, the words tumbling out in a torrent, a confession that felt less like an apology and more like a desperate attempt to explain away the unforgivable. "Marcus is my ex-fiancé. We were together back in San Francisco for years. He was charismatic, brilliant, but he was also a con artist. We were partners in a tech startup, but it was just a front. He was running a massive Ponzi scheme, and I was helping him with the financials and marketing. When the whole thing collapsed, I escaped to Denver and tried to start over. I thought I had left that life, and him, behind. But he found me. He saw our life, our beautiful house, our son, and he saw a way to get out of the debt he was in. He told me he had a list of all my clients and our conversations, and he would expose the truth about Leo and our past if I didn't help him. He said he'd tell everyone, even my family, and get me a criminal record. He was going to ruin my life, my reputation, everything I had worked for." She looked up at me, a flicker of genuine fear and a twisted plea for understanding in her eyes. "I had to help him. I had to protect Leo. I had to do it to keep you and Leo safe from him." Her confession was a masterclass in manipulation, but it didn't change the fact that she had betrayed me. She had made a series of choices, each one a step deeper into a web of financial fraud and lies, all for the sake of a man who had no respect for anyone but himself. Update 10. The family secret. The moment I had dreaded the most had arrived. The family conspiracy. "And my sister," I said, my voice shaking with fury, the question a final, brutal blow. "Why did she know about this?" Sarah took a deep breath, the confession about to come to a head. "She didn't know about Leo," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. "But she knew about Marcus. He's her ex-husband too. They were married for a year, a whirlwind romance that ended in financial disaster and a messy divorce. She was a key part of his business, helping him with his debts and his schemes. She tried to warn me to leave you, but I didn't listen. She was helping me hide the money, not to protect me, but to keep herself out of prison. She didn't want you to be a victim of a paternity fraud, but she was worried about her own legal problems if the FBI got involved with Marcus. She was just as much a victim as I was. We were both just trying to get away from him, and when he found us, we had no choice but to help him. She was just as much a victim as I was. We were both just trying to get away from him, and when he found us, we had no choice but to help him." The truth was like a physical blow, a sudden, brutal sucker punch to the soul. The two women I trusted most in the world, my wife and my sister, had been secretly colluding to hide a devastating secret. They had actively worked together, using WhatsApp and other apps, to deceive me for years. The sheer scale of the deceit was breathtaking. I had spent years of my life with people who had no respect for me, who had no respect for the truth. It was a lie that had been built on top of a lie, and I was standing on the ruins of a life that was never real. I was a man with nothing left to lose, and I was going to make sure they paid for their lies. Update 11. The calculated revenge. My rage solidified into a cold, unbreakable resolve, a state of mind far more dangerous than any fleeting anger. I stood up, picked up my phone, and ended the recording. The small red light blinked off, a final, definitive period on her confession. "I have everything I need, Sarah," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "You can leave now." She tried to argue, to plead, her desperation now a pathetic, useless thing, but I just pointed to the front door. Her silence was a clear admission of guilt. The house, once a sanctuary of warmth and love, was now a tomb of secrets. As soon as she was gone, I set to work with a methodical precision that would have made my boss proud. I didn't just call the police. I prepared a dossier. I meticulously compiled every single piece of evidence, the saved text messages, the detailed logs of the fraudulent transactions, and the irrefutable DNA results. I cross-referenced every date, every wire transfer, every location, and every person involved. I created a narrative, a clear, concise, and damning timeline of their conspiracy. I was no longer a husband. I was a financial analyst presenting a case. My next step was the police station. The officer at the front desk was a young man with a bored expression, and I could tell he thought I was just another husband with a domestic dispute. But as I placed a thick manila folder filled with organized documents on his desk, his expression slowly changed from skepticism to professional curiosity, and finally, to shock. I didn't have to say a word. The documents did all the talking for me. The recorded confession, the paternity test, the intricate web of financial fraud, all of it was there, laid out in a way that even a rookie cop could understand. The officer looked up at me, his eyes wide. "Sir," he said, his voice hushed, "this is a clear-cut case. You've basically done all our work for us. He's going to be facing some serious time." The final piece of this puzzle was my sister. I called her as I was leaving the police station, the adrenaline from the confrontation now replaced by a chilling sense of emptiness. The phone rang once, then twice before she answered. "Hello?" she said, her voice laced with a tense curiosity. "I know everything," I said, my voice flat. "Sarah told me everything." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening, a vacuum where a family bond used to be. She hung up, a clear admission of guilt. A few hours later, a text message came through. "You won. Happy now?" Her simple message was more painful than any argument. The betrayal was complete. Update 12. The grand exposure. The time for my final act of justice was finally here. My plan was not just about winning the legal battle, it was about reclaiming my dignity and exposing the truth to the world. I knew I couldn't just leave without one final act of justice. I posted a carefully worded message on social media, detailing the conspiracy and the paternity fraud. I included screenshots of the WhatsApp messages and the bank transfers, all without revealing the specific legal documents. The post went viral. The comments were filled with a mix of shock and sympathy. The internet, a place of constant chatter and noise, suddenly became my megaphone, broadcasting the truth for the world to see. The post wasn't just shared, it was dissected, analyzed, and talked about by everyone who had ever known us. The comments poured in, a mix of shock and sympathy, a chorus of disbelief and support. People from my past, from my professional life, and even people I barely knew, messaged me to offer their support and express their disgust at the betrayal. It was a digital catharsis, a public reckoning that felt more powerful than any private conversation. The final act of this tragic drama came a few days later. A process server arrived at my door, a man in a rumpled suit with a clipboard in his hand. He handed me a large manila envelope. Inside, I saw the words "divorce petition" in bold font. She had made the first move. I just smiled, a grim, weary smile that reached all the way to my eyes. This wasn't a defeat. It was the final act of this tragic drama. She was a woman who had given up her life for a con man, and now she was facing the consequences of her actions. She was no longer a wife, a friend, or a partner. She was a woman who had tried to build her life on a foundation of lies, and now it was all crashing down around her. I was no longer a victim. I was a man on a quest for justice. Update 13. The aftermath and the law. The fallout was swift and brutal. Sarah and Marcus were indicted for financial fraud and conspiracy. The criminal investigation revealed that Marcus had a long history of running scams, and Sarah was one of his most trusted accomplices. As for Leo, I had full custody. He was my son in every way that mattered. The man who had raised him, loved him, and protected him was me. I still got a call from a social worker from Child Protective Services to tell me that she was legally my son. This was the final step of my journey. The financial and emotional damage was done, but I was on the road to recovery. Update 14. The road to justice. I'm finally at peace. The legal battle is over, and I have full custody of my son, Leo. I found out the name of his biological father through court records, and I realized he was just a casual hookup who was never a part of her life. He was a pawn in her game of deceit, just like me. This isn't just a story about paternity fraud. It's a story about a man who was willing to fight for his life. I had to learn the hard way that a person can be living a life of deceit, and you'd never know until you find one small piece of evidence that unravels the entire story. In my case, it was a WhatsApp message. I wasn't just a victim. I was the person who helped bring down a criminal. I found justice, not for myself, but for my son, the person who made my life worth living. If this story resonated with you, it's a testament to the power of truth and resilience. We encourage you to engage with this message and share it with those who need to hear it. Like this video to show your support. Leave a comment below to join the conversation and share your own experiences or thoughts on overcoming betrayal. Your story matters. Subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications to receive more compelling narratives of justice and personal triumph.